actually think the problem is institutional schooling. So if schools were six-person schools happening in people's backyard, it'd be a very different story. If one kid started getting unhinged, the other five would know. This is because of the industrialization of society. There's a reason why, terrorists blow up large airliners or try to hit trains or bridges, because these are large things. Humans are not meant to live in trustless societies in massive, massive groups. The Dunbar number, which is how many people you can get to know and keep track of, is pretty small. It's about 120 to 150 people. We're meant to live in smaller, higher trust societies. And I think just aggregating people into large, low trust elements like schools our public schools are not the right answer for the future. I'm much more of an advocate of pods, homeschools, small schools, local government, state government, shrinking everything down to the size where people know each other. But we've now come up with these societies where people move around. We're disconnected from friends and family. We're disconnected from larger families. We're disconnected from our neighbors. And we rely on the government to build trust and to maintain trust in everything. And that's going to end up a very violent and controlled place where someone top down is looking down and saying, oh, you thousand people have nothing in common, but we're going to shove you all in the same small area, force you to go to school, because, a lot of kids are just forced to go to school. You're miserable here. And if one of you snaps, too bad. There's lots of you in a small enclosed space. One of the interesting things about homeschooling is homeschool kids don't get bullied, even by the usual bullies, because the bullies know that in the homeschooling situation, if you're meeting with other kids, you're meeting by choice. It's like, I can't bully you. You can't bully adults because they'll just leave. The reason why bullying works against kids is because there's this enforced little prison environment where they can't leave. I had a little quip on Twitter that, schools are prisons for the lucky kids and prisons are schools for the unlucky kids. And I don't think there's as much of a difference from them as we would like to make it out to be. Mandatory schooling where kids are shoved off to school every day. I get it. I get why we do it. It's daycare for kids so the adults can go about their business. But the industrialized education system is basically putting kids in a mini prison until they're 18, 20, 21, trying to brainwash them, often unsuccessfully, and then shoving them out in the real world and saying, okay, now you're adults. Now here's a gun. Here's a right to vote. Here's your alcohol. Go make some good decisions.
Mm. Well, that's a very bleak outlook, and I don't think you're wrong about a lot of the school systems, though I will say we actually love our schools.
I don't want to be bleak. I do think things are getting better. Why are they getting better? Well, one is school choice. The school choice movement makes so much sense.
Exactly.
The reason why Stuyvesant was
exactly.
great.
I'll say, we had schools that we did not much like, that we did feel were indoctrination centers. And now our kids are at schools that are amazing, that are exciting for them. They're fun. They think about days that the kids can sleep in. My ninth grader, went back to school this week, and 2 out of the 4 days he was there, they went to some go-kart facilities so the boys could just bond with one another and have fun. And they did a whole day of charity where they packed lunches for underprivileged kids. That's great stuff. Like, you can find great schools that are more than just daycare or, a reason to send your kid off.
Yeah, there's a funny little historical aside. Mandatory schooling which actually still happens a lot in Europe, was created under the French and Prussian empires. Because if you're an empire and you conquer somebody and you want to brainwash them, the current generation is lost. They hate you. But what happens is you grab their kids, you shove them in school, and you indoctrinate them 8 hours a day. And then they grow up speaking the imperial language and the imperial culture, and they're fully assimilated. I mean, look at me. India was colonized by Great Britain. I speak fluent English. If I go to London, it's like being nostalgic for a place that I've never been to before. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. I kind of know this. So I am brainwashed and programmed by that empire. It works. So mandatory schooling was to some extent done so that these imperial powers could indoctrinate the children of the next generation. In fact, when originally I read something that Napoleon soldiers used to have to go around and take kids by force from the peasants in the territories they had conquered and send them off to school. And the peasants would hide one kid in the basement and say, okay, this one's going to be the free thinker. So, wow. Yeah, I mean, I'm a little more down on industrial education. I think small scale education, homeschooling, pods, small schools that are run by well-meaning people who genuinely care about the kids. That's useful. It's these industrial schools where you cram 60, 90, 100 kids into a class. There's a teacher who's just trying to do crowd control because there's like 1 or 2 incredibly violent or unruly or depressed kids who are making problems for everybody. And then they're like, well, how do you crowd control a large group? If you get on an airplane, you start making trouble, immediately the fasten your seatbelt sign comes on. The poor stewardess has to run around threatening everybody. So the same thing happens in school. It's like, sit down, shut up, don't raise your hand. No, you can't go to the bathroom. Just pay attention. Just recite this after me. Okay, you have a problem. You need ADHD meds. Go to the psychiatrist, get some
Hmm.
medics, calm down. So the teachers are put in this impossible situation of crowd control for a bunch of kids who are of very different backgrounds, varieties, predilections. Some are violent, some have really broken, miserable home lives. And unfortunately, if you want to raise a kid and do it right, they need lots and lots and lots of individual attention from someone who loves them. And there's no substitute for that.
Yeah.
Children growing up without the feeling of unconditional love and patience, they're gonna have a really hard life. You got to
Mm,
hold your kids now, otherwise you're gonna end up holding them later.
I couldn't agree more. Or somebody's going to wind up holding them like a therapist who they're going to have to pay a
Yeah.
lot of money to for biweekly sessions.